The war between Israel and Palestine started more than 4 months ago, and more than 20,000 people have already been lost. Surprisingly, in the midst of this tragedy, certain parties will gain significantly: the U.S. arms manufacturers. Since the beginning of the war, the shares of these companies have increased by $30 billion. Two major U.S. defense contractors, Raytheon and General Dynamics, shamelessly informed investors that a war with Israel would be financially beneficial. Other weapons manufacturers, such as Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, have experienced significant inventory increases over the past 3 years. Lockheed Martin makes the two F-35 Lightning fighter jets used by Israel, as well as Black Hawk helicopters, Northrop Grumman submarines, and combat vehicle. In July, Israel signed a $3 billion deal to buy its F-35 fighter jets. One wonders about Israel's origins and considerable military budget. The obvious answer would be that it is funded by Israeli taxpayers. But look at this news article. In September 2016, during the term of President Obama, the United States and Israel signed an agreement worth $38 billion, because according to this agreement, the United States will supply $38 billion worth of military equipment per year for Israel. As a result, a staggering 92 of weapons imported into Israel now come from a single country, the United States. But why is this important? A country buying weapons from an ally would not seem suspicious. But the peculiarity of this situation is that the arms industry does not care about any alliance. The gun industry has only one goal: make maximum profit. In January of this year, the U.S. State Department announced a record $205 billion in arms sales in the last fiscal year to various countries around the world. The increase compared to last year was 49%. These weapons went to 58 different countries, including, in addition to Israel, several Arab countries such as Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. Will selling these weapons make the world safer or unsafe? Last year, Israel also set a record for arms sales. This significant number includes sales of drones, missiles, rockets, and air defense systems. Israel is the 10th largest arms exporter in the world, the first four being the United States, Russia, France, and China. The United Kingdom holds the 7th position. What distinguishes those 5 nations is their reputation as everlasting members of the United Nations Security Council. Combined, their weapon income constitutes over 75% of worldwide exports. How can one anticipate that the United Nations might undertake a decision to curtail weapons globally? In May of this year, Oxfam International's head of New York Workplace highlighted that 4 out of the 5 everlasting individuals of the UN Security Council are the world's main weapon exporters. These guns cause conflicts worldwide. This is definitely hypocritical, complicit, and immoral. Apart from them, Germany, Italy, and South Korea additionally function as some of the top 10 weapon exporters. In the area of geopolitics, the U.S. aligns with Israel at the same time as Russia and China form a separate bloc. Even within the present-day crisis, those facets are evident. Russian President Putin's opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict is that it must be visible as a failure of United States policy, asserting that the United States neglects the well-being of Palestinians. China, too, condemns Israel's movements in Gaza, characterizing them as past self-defense. This would possibly create the influence of a divide, with the U.S. and Israel on one side and China and Russia on the other. However, in relation to weapon exports, locate themselves on the same side. These nations together export the most guns globally. By now, you are probably wondering if those nations are honestly terrible. We must be protesting the nations exporting guns worldwide. But in case you are wondering, you're lacking the point. A country is shaped by its residents. Americans are not bad. Neither are Russians, Israelis, or Chinese residents. The residents are not consulted. Almost all the guns bought globally through those nations are not bought through governments. As a substitute, they are bought through non-public capitalists. Look at this listing, the pinnacle of 100 gun agencies. Out of the pinnacle, Israel Aerospace Industries, Aviation Industry Corporation of China. Disregarding those exceptions, the bulk are non-public entities. Lockheed Martin, an American company, holds the pinnacle spot, accompanied by Northrop Grumman. In fact, 51 of the agencies in the listing are American, The cash used to buy those guns regularly comes from taxpayers, as governments fund those acquisitions. In April of this year, a report by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute revealed that at the head of military expenditures are the United States with $877 billion, China with $292 billion, and Russia with $86 billion. And all 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council are also on the list. Why don't these 5 countries together decide to stop the unnecessary consumption of weapons? A joint commitment to refrain from attacking each other could be a transformative step in stemming the financial drain on military budgets. American citizens are often the main victims of the arms industry. The frequency of mass shootings in America is alarmingly higher than in any other country. There have been more than 500 mass shootings with tragic effects on children, making school shootings a painfully common phrase in America. Between 2021 and 2022, there were more than 327 school shootings in American schools. This is a direct result of America's lax regulation of gun ownership. Unlike other countries, where disputes are settled with fists and kicks, in America, people don't hesitate to shoot a gun, simply because American laws favor gun ownership. If gun sales were banned, these shootings would eventually stop. This is why dozens of children lose their lives in the United States every year. Politicians are often seen shedding tears, but the arms trade is not affected. Alarmingly, gun sales in America tripled between 2005 and 2020. In the preceding year alone, Americans bought an impressive 16.6 million weapons. The authorities can easily extradite this if they desire to. Take Australia, for example, as soon as it was recognized for lax gun regulations. In April 1996, a 28-year-old killed 35 with a rifle in Australia's worst massacre. Following this mass shooting, Australian Prime Minister John Howard took decisive action to deal with the problem of firearms. The National Firearms Agreement was changed and applied a month later. Between October 1996 and September 1997, the authorities seized over 650,000 privately owned weapons. The gun proprietors had been given financial reimbursement to give up their firearms to the authorities. People who had weapons illegally were not compensated. However, they failed to face prosecution for voluntarily turning over their unlawful guns. As a result, today, in Australia, such mass shootings are hardly ever seen. The effects of the gun mafia have increased. Aren't the only ones taking advantage of promoting guns. They have ventured into supplying non-public armies, generally called mercenaries. During the Russia-Ukraine war, the Wagner organization received interest from the authorities for trying to overthrow Putin. Considered by Putin as an anti-country, the organization eventually disbanded. Do you know the way this organization was formed? The Wagner organization originated in Russia. Putin had stated that this organization acquired investment from the kingdom budget, a truth that was initially denied for years. Putin eventually admitted to allocating $1 billion to the group in a year. Dmitry Kiselyov, the head of the state, controlled Russian media group stated that the Wagner Group was provided a total of $9.8 billion by the Russian government. Remarkably, taxpayer money was used to finance private armies. Question arises, why didn't Russia use its army? Why opt to hire private mercenary groups? The primary motivation behind this decision is cost. Effectiveness. In a wartime scenario, providing funds to a private company to fight the war on behalf of the country. Deploying the national army is very bothersome. In the form of various financial obligations such as pension payments, army officers' salaries, health insurance, and compensations for families of martyrs. You might be wondering who would want to fight as a part of a private company's armies. Mercenaries often hail from economically disadvantaged countries, driven by financial constraints and limited job opportunities. They often join the army of these private companies. Russia isn't the only one to do so. Israel are cyber mercenaries who interact in cybercrimes for cash, which includes hacking, forging blackmail material, disinformation spreading, planting fake intelligence, and surveillance. Team George, an Israeli cyber mercenary organization, interfered in 33 presidential campaigns. Facebook uncovered and banned 7 cyber mercenary corporations in December 2021. These corporations had targeted nearly 50,000 humans worldwide. 4 of those have been Israeli cyber mercenaries like Black Cube and Cobwebs. Talking about America, between 1994 and 2007, approximately $300 billion was spent on 12 private militias. One of these private military company is Blackwater, founded by former U.S. Navy officer Eric Prince. selling its private services for money. In September 2007, Blackwater received notoriety when its mercenaries killed 17 harmless Iraqi civilians. Although 4 people have been prosecuted, they have been pardoned in 2020 all through Donald Trump's presidency. In December 2021, United Nations record accused Erik Prince of violating the guns ban in Libya. The ongoing war in Libya is now characterized as a personal war. Look at this news article stating that Blackwater was hired by the Obama government to provide security in Afghanistan in 2010 at a cost of $220 million of public tax money when the Taliban regained control of Afghanistan. Reports from the Wall Street Journal revealed that Erik Prince was charging $6,500 per person to facilitate safe evacuations from Afghanistan on charter flights. An internal report from Blackwater disclosed that among 195 shooting incidents in the last 2 years, the company's employees shot the first bullet in 160 instances. It is also quite common for politicians to invest in the shares of these private entrepreneurs, making them direct shareholders. This goes beyond a simple bribery situation. Any benefits to the company would directly benefit the politician. George Bush was the American president during the invasion of Iraq. His father was a board member of the Carlyle Group. This same group received several defense contracts through companies such as Vought and United Defense. America has at least 15 influential politicians who have personal investments in these military contractors. They direct military policy by profiting from these arms companies holding their own shares. Politicians often derive political benefits from wars. When politicians have to answer for issues like corruption and unemployment, they can use wars to divert public attention. In the real world, it's not politicians who engage in wars, but rather ordinary people who fight against each other. It reveals a harsh truth about the world and the arms industry, an industry whose existence would be threatened if global wars ended. Perhaps that is why it is useful to continue wars to ensure a constant flow of money. If you found this video informative, subscribe and like the video.